welcome Keld Jensen.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're busy, we all are, and there's lots of different book launches and books available out there. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you take the time to watching this one, whether you watch it live right now and have the opportunity to ask questions, or you're going to watch the recorded version later. Anyway, this is like a birthday. Happy birthday to the new book, The Elements of Negotiation, that is launching today. It has actually been available on Amazon for a few days. They cheated, but otherwise it is available globally from now on, so it is possible to book. Now, obviously, this is a little bit of a promotional session, I have to warn you, but I will pick some of the important content from the book that I think it's relevant for everybody. And who's this book for? Well, I could be a little bit smart and say, well, it's for everybody who got a pulse. And it really is, because negotiation in my world is something for everybody. I don't know if you've been thinking about it, but I claim we have 8,000 to 10,000 negotiations per year. We negotiate with our kids, with our spouse, with our boss, with our colleagues, with our suppliers, with the bank, with the insurance company, with the police officer trying to give us a fine for speeding. Negotiation is everywhere. So this is truly a book that is for everybody. And the question is, what is the difference between this book and the other books I wrote and other books on the market? Well, I have been working in the field of negotiation since 1998. And one of the inspiration to do the element of negotiation was that I noticed that there was a lot of resources on negotiation, and some of them I would say would be overly theoretical or too focused on rigid tactics. So it was important for me coming out with a book that is very down to earth, very practical, and basically summarize everything I feel is important when we talk negotiation. So let me share some of the stuff from the book. But before that, I love this quote up here. Comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing grows there. And I normally challenge how people negotiate. And when people ask me what my job is, I often say, I don't have a job. I have a mission. My mission in life is to improve the way we negotiate. And why? It's a long story. But I realized that a lot of negotiations are actually being wasted. That means we don't utilize the full potential. And my previous book, the Negotiation Essential book, was a little bit more holistic, talking about strategy, philosophy, the choice of strategy, and how we should actually implement negotiation as a strategic choice and method in an organization. The Element of Negotiation, just published on Wiley, is way more a tool book offering 103 tools, obviously, thereby the name The Elements, because we have exactly 103 tools. And I can promise you not go through 103 tools today in this 1 hour, because then I will probably put most of you to sleep. But I will focus on what's really important and I felt was especially important. Now, who am I? For those who don't know me, I'm a dual citizen. I'm a citizen of the Kingdom of Denmark and the US. I live in the US and I work globally. I have an organization with partners around the world that assist organizations and governments and individuals in improving the way they negotiate. And besides that, I'm a professor at several different universities. I'm a published author, as you know. I'm on the Global Gurus top 30 list as number 4 on negotiation. I'm on the top thought leaders on trust list. Since trust, as we will talk about today, is a very essential part, I did my doctorate on negotiation, trust, and AI. And then I do a lot of advisory and speaking around the world. So that's a very brief introduction to who I am. I won't bother you with that so much today. That's not really the key thing while we're here. So a step back. This is my book number 26 to be exact, since 1998. Number 27 is actually going to be published next year. It's a trilogy on Wiley. So the book next year is called The Smart Negotiator, but more about that way later. We're not going to spend time on that today. Today, we're going to talk about the book at hand, The Element of Negotiation. So if today I present good arguments, would you be willing to change your mind, meaning in this case, buying the book, or would you prefer to stick to your current belief that you are satisfied with the book you got already. This is not only a sales pitch I'm using here today to try and convince you to potentially buy the book. It is actually a statement I use in negotiation advising my clients as well. Because one of the things and one of the many, many tools in the books that I will discuss is the ability to really, really listen. My dear colleague, Dr. Dan Shapiro from Harvard University, has now for a few years raised the topic that we are not good listeners as human beings anymore. We are tribal, as he called it. And I'm very inspired by Dr. Shapiro's work because we are truly tribal. That means that if you agree with me, we create a group, and we are now in this group in agreement of what we agree on. But if somebody else represents a different opinion, we are not even listening to them, because we don't even feel that it's appropriate what they're saying. We don't even have an interest in what they're saying. So we basically just ignore whatever's coming from their side. I believe disagreement is a healthy thing. From disagreement come progress. And we definitely often see in negotiation that the ability and the need to listen is essential. So if I present good arguments, would you be willing to change your mind and buy the book today? And please copy this code in your real life negotiation. Open up by saying, if I actually present some good arguments today, would you be willing to change your mind? Or are you stuck in your current belief? So that is one of the first simple pieces of advice I want to give you. Now, this book is based on a study of 35,000 negotiations since 1998. What I've been doing is watching, analyzing, and recording data on 35,000 negotiations I've been watching. And this is both negotiation that has happened in real life. It is negotiations that we have studied in laboratories. And we have then collected all of the experience, all of the data, and put it all together. And that's how we ended up with 103 elements. And one of the really important parts that we have discovered through this intensive study throughout the years is that, and listen carefully, up to 42% of the value in a negotiation is disappearing. Now, imagine that you go to a fast food restaurant. I'm sure none of us are eating fast food because obviously that is very healthy. I'm just kidding. I'm definitely doing fast food as well. But imagine that you walk into a McDonald's restaurant somewhere. You order a burger, and the burger looks exactly like on the screen right now. Somebody in the kitchen took a big bite of your burger. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't be satisfied with that. I don't think you will be sitting there thinking, well, I guess somebody in the kitchen was hungry. So they took a bite of my burger. I don't think you are going to be happy to share in a situation like that. You're probably going up to the counter and complaining. You might be disgusted, and you might be not only complaining, but requesting to get your money back, and even, demand some kind of compensation. So my question always to my audience is, if we would never accept something like this in our negotiation, in a fast food restaurant, why would we accept in a negotiation not capitalizing a potential of 42%? Now, this is the award-winning concept that I have coined that we call negoeconomics, negotiation economics. And it's a very simple, really, mathematical model that just shows that the asymmetric value between two parties could be capitalized up to a value of 42%. And let me give you a promise. I am working with hundreds and hundreds of professional negotiators around the world, from major corporations, mid-sized companies, and governments every single year. And every time I start a workshop, I promise every single one of them that if you, by the end of the first day of the workshop, don't see where that unutilized potential might be, I will refund my fee of running that workshop. And I have never refunded anything so far, because everybody understands at the end of the first day, there is an unutilized capitalized value. Now, what I'm also saying is I can't promise it will be 42%. Because that varies from industry to industry, company to company, and negotiation to negotiation. But what I know for a fact is that will be an unutilized potential. So imagine that you in your next negotiation could increase your earning by, just say, 9%, 12%, 18%, or you could reduce your cost by 11%, 13%, 25%. Wouldn't that be amazing? So one of the tools of the 103 elements in the book is actually discussing, obviously, the concept of negoeconomics in details. Where is it coming from? How do we capitalize it? And there's another element, actually, and this is bad news, I know, for some of you, discussing the importance of mathematics. because commercial negotiation is really about one thing and one thing only: to create value and distribute value. I repeat that: to create value and distribute value. I have never ever in my career seen two companies that are sitting negotiating with each other that didn't have that in mind: to create value and distribute value. So our understanding of mathematics is really essential. And I have to be honest, ladies and gentlemen, and share with you that in my world, all the gimmicks and the tactics about reading whether you are a liar, or figuring out what is the real point of what you're saying, or understanding manipulation, and having this whole toolbook of different tactics to try and outmaneuver the counterpart, in my world, to be honest, waste of time, because we're just playing a game then. And commercial negotiation is not playing a game. As I just said, it's about creating and distributing value. Now, will we always meet a counterpart that will understand that the same way? Of course not. So yes, we need to understand what do we do in the case when we meet somebody who is not on the same understanding of us about negotiation. And I'll get back to that in a few minutes as well. Now, what I've been saying for years is that we have hundreds of thousands of negotiations that are being wasted every single minute around the world. And I'm discussing that obviously in the book. What is it that I mean by a wasted negotiation? But let me just explain it very quickly right here. A wasted negotiation for me is when two parties would benefit from reaching an agreement with each other, but they don't. And back to our studies, we have found that 1/3 of all negotiations that should reach an agreement with each other because it will benefit the both of them are not. They might be leaving the conference room thinking, well, the counterpart is an idiot. It's impossible to reach an agreement with them. So it was not possible to reach an agreement and sign a contract. But in reality, when we look into the detail of this negotiation, it would be possible, and it would have been better for both parties than their next best alternative to reach an agreement. But we have found that 1/3 of all negotiations that should have successfully been concluded between the two parties are wasted. They don't reach an agreement. Now, I'm not saying that you have to reach an agreement to be successful in a negotiation. Sometimes a successful negotiation is when you don't reach an agreement, because if it's better for you not reaching an agreement with the counterpart than reaching one, obviously you've been successful then. Now, the second part is perhaps even more interesting, and that is basically just reflecting what I talked about 2 minutes ago. The second half of why I claim that so many negotiations are being wasted out there is because they don't utilize the concept of necroeconomics. And we have seen back to the 35,000 negotiations that they typically utilize around 58% of the values. So imagine you're sitting there with your counterpart and you don't realize that value. You may sign the contract. You may be very happy with the outcome. You're leaving the conference room feeling very satisfied. But what you don't see capitalized or utilized was that value of potentially 42%. Now, back to what I said, the book is definitely describing and explaining what that's all about. A study that we often quote on our workshop as well is basically connected to the same study. And we have figured out, based on these 35,000 negotiations, that when you take a typical pie, the value of a commercial negotiation, what we see typically in average is that the buying side is getting 19% of the value. So let's say this is a $1 million negotiation. The buying side is walking away with $190,000. They don't know how much they got in percentage of the total value. You have a sell side, the supply side, they typically walk away with an average of 39%. And then you have the unutilized part, as we talked about now, of the 42%. Now, I'm not really that interested in the buy side or the sell side. I'm more interested in actually unutilized value. But I think, again, it's interesting that we have a buy side and sell side where the value distribution is that different. Now, guys, we have more than 200 people signing up for our session today, which is remarkable. Thank you so much. And you are very welcome already now to ask questions. And I would very much love if you could share in the comments where you're calling in from, because I could see from the list of people making registration that we are all over the world. So that's always fun just to see where you might be calling in from. At the very end of the session today, I have some free accessories that you can get. You can download immediately. One of them is a workbook. It's a 50-page, 23 assignment workbook that you can get for free. that is very usable if you purchase the element of negotiation. But it will give you an additional amount of tools that you can utilize immediately. And I will also pick a few winners that get a free copy of the book if you haven't bought it already. But more about that a little bit later. Now, another topic I discuss in the book is the need to create a strategy. And I could ask you this question right now. I'm pretty sure that you represent an interesting organization. And the question to you is, do you have an official negotiation strategy? Quite often, the answer is no. The majority of organizations I ask this question are just quiet for a minute, and then they often say, because there isn't one. I'm pretty sure if I ask you if you have a go-to-market strategy, if you had a research and development strategy, if you had a communication strategy, if you had an HR strategy, if you have a bunch of the other strategies that business school are teaching us that we need, you would all go, of course we have. Of course we have a strategy. And we need a negotiation strategy. And I divided the choices into 3 different boxes. We could either choose a zero sum, we could choose partnership, or we could choose the concept I created called smartnership. Now I'm diving in to explaining all 3 of them in the book in more details. And my previous book from last year, Negotiation Essential, is even diving deeper into the details, the essential of what it is that we need to focus on when we are creating a strategy. But the element of negotiation, the current new book, is also discussing that. And zero sum, I'm sure we all know what a zero sum is. I win at your expense and you win at my expense. My progress is happening at your expense. So if I'm more successful, you're going to be less successful. A partnership is something that is very common, and quite often when we ask organizations how they negotiate with suppliers or buyers, they say, oh, we are in partnership with all our suppliers. And I think they mean it. But when you look behind what they're saying, what we often find is that they're really doing long-term zero sum. So they've been doing business with a supplier for 6 years, and thereby they think it's partnership. But that's not often partnership. That is just a long-term zero sum. Partnership is something very different. I'm explaining that in the book. And because there's this misunderstanding of what partnership is, years ago, I created the concept of smartnership. I could have called it partnership version 2.0, but it is really just an advanced, developed version of partnership. The big difference, very briefly explained, between partnership and smartnership is that in a smartnership, we have agreed on rules of the game on how to negotiate. We have discussed and verbalized trust and transparency, and we are able and willing and ready to capitalize variables, everything that is negotiable, and to identify the asymmetric value, economics. And we have also agreed on how to split that potential. Now, I love this little drawing up here because this is basically obviously a Lego box. And being originally from Denmark, born and raised in Denmark, I love Lego. For those of you who didn't know it, Lego is actually a Danish product from the Lego organization that is headquartered in Denmark. Now, I find Lego, a box of Lego, very similar to a negotiation, really, because when you look at a box of Lego, what you see in there is obviously there's a lot of pieces that you have to put together. So when you work with that, you have to choose and align all the pieces to make them work. Same thing as in a negotiation. You have to choose and align the interest in a negotiation. Negotiation in my world is really teamwork. You're working together to make 2 + 2 equal more than 4. And building Lego with friends are more exciting. My boys, I have 2 boys at home, they love building Legos and they prefer to do it either with their dad or with their brother, or with some friends. It's more fun when you work with other people. Lego is also about creative problem solving, just like negotiation. You have to solve a problem. And think about it this way. Negotiation is not so much just a competitive sport. It's actually an assignment, a team exercise where we have to solve the problem. How do we maximize the value for the both of us? Transparency also matters in a box of Lego, right? When putting together a Lego set, you can't hide some bricks. It will destroy the end result. If you're missing a wheel to the car, you can't finish that car. And the same thing goes for negotiation. Transparency is key to success. And then the last thing I want to compare Lego to negotiation is trust. You trust Lego. Have you ever thought about that? You trust when you buy a box of Lego that all the right bricks are in the box. If you're missing bricks in the box, that will completely devastate your ability to put the whole thing together. And just like you have to trust the bricks in the box and Lego, you have to trust your negotiation partners. That is crucial for creating and building strong and successful agreements. So that is really essential that we compare that and understand that concept as well. Now, this Lego box here do not exist in real life, so don't go out to the local toy store and say, I want to buy that. Well, one day, perhaps, it could be fun if we actually are getting that one day. Think about this one up here. Negotiation works better when you're not winging it. And the reason I'm saying that is really because I see perhaps too many negotiators who are just winging it. I met a gentleman, a business professional, some month ago who said, yes, I fully appreciate that negotiation training and understanding is essential. I had great training 18 years ago, and I really embraced the concept and loved it. Now, the upside to what this gentleman was saying is he had trainings. Good for him. The downside is it is 18 years ago. And one of the many, many reasons that I keep writing books and keep putting stuff out there is because we need to understand what an impact negotiation makes in our world. And unfortunately, there are way too many people, as I said when I started this session today, that think negotiation is something that happens between business people in the conference room or between diplomats. But it's something that is happening for all of us all the time. And we can only improve the way we negotiate today. Just look at the state of the world these days. I think negotiation is more essential than ever. And talking about wars for a second, have you ever thought about that most wars starts because a negotiation failed somehow? And all wars ends with a negotiation. Full stop. All wars in history of humanity ends with negotiation. So you might be thinking, why don't you just jump that stage of war and just go straight into negotiation? Why do you need to go through that part beforehand? But that's a different topic. Anyway, let's dive in and talk about the book a little bit. The book, as you can see on the screen right now, is divided into 8 major chapters. It is inspired by the periodic table, obviously. And I identified 103 elements that we're going to take a look at in a few minutes. But the chapters that I have identified, and this is work in progress for years and years, is nonverbal. So we start talking about communication in the book. Knowledge is the second one. What is it we need to know as negotiators and professionals? Then there is a whole big chapters on different and various tools. Then we're going to talk about tactics. We are going into the emotional part as well. And while I remember, I am the negotiation expert in resident for World Commerce and Contracting, and we are running a webinar online show called the Negotiation Room that runs in Trilogy 3 times a year. And on Thursday at 7 a.m. Pacific time, we have one of my great heroes. You say you should never meet your heroes, but that's going to happen to me on Thursday. Dan Ariely, who is one of the greatest thinkers on behavioral economics. So if you have an interest in that, please tune in, worldcc.com, and just look at events and click on that one. It's free, but you have to register. But that's a full hour where we're going to talk behavioral economics. And Dan has truly inspired me throughout the years with his thoughts on behavioral economics and the understanding of irrationality in negotiation. So that's connected to that chapter up here. Then we have things to consider. That's basically a chapter that is kind of a reminder of everything we need to know as negotiators. And then we have the ultimate level, when you have reached what I would call the absolutely professional level, where you are unconsciously conscious. That means you don't know what you know, but you know it. So you're really at a great level. And then we have foundation. Now, I've started doing interviews on my book tour already. And the question I've got the most in the beginning of every interview is that, how come you put nonverbal communication as the first, and why is foundation at the last? Shouldn't foundation be the first chapter and communication further in the book? No, it should not, because I started, as I said earlier, this route and trip on negotiation in 1998. And after being doing this work for a few years, I discovered that a lot of these students and clients I was working with still failed in negotiation. And I was sitting back then thinking, this is weird, because I do believe the concept we're preaching is good. I think we are delivering some really value to our participants. So why are they still failing? And when we looked into it, we discovered that communication was the key thing they were lacking. So we developed the program called Positive Impact. I actually published a book in 2015, named the same thing, where we are embracing and covering everything around communication. And I've kind of summarized the most important key concept from that book in the first chapter on nonverbal behavior. And the other thing about foundation, well, foundation is something we should look at when everything else is covered. And we have a lot of stuff in the foundational part, and one of them is actually the love of negotiation. And let me ask you a quick question. Do you like to negotiate? And obviously I can't see you right now, but just be honest about it. Because what I often found is that people who are not really good at negotiations are not good at it because they don't like to negotiate. So that's why one of the elements of the 103 I'm discussing in the book is, do you actually like to negotiate? Now, I know my partner from Germany and Denmark, Tina, is here today. And Tina and I were running an MBA class recently where we were talking to some of the women in the class if they like to negotiate. And what was interesting to Tina and I was that a majority of them actually said, no, I don't really like to negotiate. But after 2 days training, they have changed their mind. I said, I actually do like to negotiate now. And a lot of people I meet that claim they don't like to negotiate really don't like to negotiate for one simple reason, that how they perceive negotiation is really about confrontation, disagreement, something that is unpleasant, something, by the way, that most of us don't like. And perhaps negotiations shouldn't necessarily be that way. Imagine that negotiation is not about confrontation, not about serious sum, not about positional, not about me winning at your expense, but imagine that negotiation could actually be a collaboration, a teamwork, where I'm really here to help you reduce your risk, your liabilities, and reducing your cost, and at the same time improving your profit. Not at my expense, but because your success is my success as well. So that's one of the basic things in the book that I really focus on quite a lot. Take a look at the whole thing here, and don't worry, I'm not going to dive into all the details, so I'm not going to go through the 103 elements as I promised you already, but this is what you have up here, basically the content of the book. So you can see the nonverbal part, the knowledge, the tools, the tactics, the emotions, the things to consider, the ultimate level, and the foundations. And I have, as I said, been working for many years identifying these 103 elements. And some of you might be sitting there thinking, why not 104? I could think about another one besides the 103. And I'm sure you could. And you might be right. It's too late, though. The book is out. But I am not claiming I have covered everything, but I'm claiming I have covered everything I could think about for all these years focusing on negotiation. And we even included a chapter on AI, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later, because AI is such an important thing when we talk about negotiation today as well. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I have concluded my doctorate on negotiation, trust, and AI. And one of the exciting things that I've been occupied with, for those of you who knows me for years, is the importance of trust in negotiation. And it's funny when people are saying that trust is a soft skill. That is not the case at all. Trust is a hardcore skill. It's a monetary value. And my doctorate research proved that, where we ran studies across thousands of people in negotiation. And we actually looked at the outcome of this. And let me just summarize very quickly. And if any of you have an interest, you are very welcome to get my thesis. It's 226 pages. It's boring, as theses are. So not as interesting, hopefully, written as this book. But the summary of the trust study is in the book. And what we saw up here, if you take a look at the screen, is that increased probability of win-win solution increases by 36% the second that trust is infused into negotiation. Transaction cost is reduced by 35%. And let me explain this very quickly. If we have a high level of trust in any kind of negotiation, our transaction cost will decline and our profit will increase. On the other hand, if we have a low level of trust in any kind of negotiation, our transaction cost will increase and our profit will decrease, right? So it's not something I'm claiming. This is actually being proven through research. So we are talking about some tremendous numbers up here the second we are able to infuse trust into negotiation. Facilitation of long-term relationships, back to a talk about earlier, the real long-term, not partnership, but partnership. We can see that the second we have high trust, we just increase the long-term relationship compared to low trust relationships. We also saw that time to reach an agreement is actually dropping quite a lot. So the second we have high trust in a negotiation, the average time to sign a contract, regardless what kind of industry we're in, is being reduced from about 44 days to 31 days. So that's quite a lot as well. Profit increase in high trust negotiation, they increased by 34%. So you simply just were more profitable the second you work with trust. And reduced time to reach an agreement, as I said earlier, went all the way down. So trust, as I said earlier, is not a soft skill. It's not something that is nice to have. It's a monetary value. And the element of negotiation is discussing that as well. And we're also going to focus a little bit on how do we actually establish trust. Now, 4 things that are essential. And I'm often getting this question when I'm doing my interviews right now. What is the key things that people should take away from the book? Well, it's basically a repeat of what I've been saying for years that we've just been able to prove now and documented even more in the book. And that's the 4 things that is really essential for most negotiators to succeed. I repeat, we have identified 4 secrets that makes negotiators more successful. And at the same time, obviously, it also identified those negotiators that are less successful. And forget about all the smart tricks and techniques, what you have out there and how you can outmaneuver the counterpart. Look at these 4 items because it's very simple. If you fulfill these 4 items, you will be more successful in your negotiations. Now, let me start with the first one, just to give you an overview. The 4 things we have identified and talked about really for years and years in our workshops and advisory services are the 4 things you see on the screen right now. It is having a strategy. It's about creating trust. It's about understanding rules of the game. And it's economics. I've touched on all 4 of them already, but let me just briefly explain. We need to have identified a strategy as an organization. And one of the things we spend a lot of time on in our organization is helping companies identify a strategy. Again, that's not rocket science. It's just basically down to how do we want to conduct our negotiation. And then we have a checklist that we can go through and establish and create that. And the book will help you understand the choice of a strategy as well. And the choices we do have, as I said, zero-sum, partnership, smartnership. Trust currency is all about trust. And I just created the word trust currency, the word currency and trust put together, obviously, because as I said, trust is a hard-core skill. It represents a monetary value. And the third one up here, understanding rules of the game. I know I'm saying something that some of you will probably feel is awkward, but we have to negotiate on how to negotiate before we start negotiating. Think about it this way. You may perceive negotiation like playing chess, but your counterpart may perceive negotiation like playing tennis. And if we don't address this issue of negotiating and how to negotiate, we're going to have a funny game, right? You're sitting there moving your pieces on the chessboard around, and your counterpart is sitting with a racket and throwing it up in the air, ready to play tennis. This is how a lot of negotiations actually begins. Parties are playing completely 2 different games. So one of the things that you really need to focus on, explain in the book as well, is that we need to establish what game are we playing. Are we playing chess? Are we playing tennis? Are we playing poker? Are we playing something completely different? We need to agree on that before we get started. So understanding rules of the game is really one of the 4 most important essentials that make some negotiators more successful than others. And the 4th one up here is obviously economics, the idea of the additional value otherwise unutilized that we discussed in the book. So creating an official negotiation strategy, as I said earlier, just like communication, HR, research and development, you need a negotiation strategy. We also need to create trust currency. And we focus on and discuss in the book and in the workbook as well, how do you do that? Because I think we can all agree, it's not as simple as I walk into a room, reach out to shake your hand and say, I would love to have trust and transparency in this negotiation. And then you go, bingo, that was what I wanted as well. I'm happy you raised that topic. Let's trust each other. Obviously, that's not the way that works. So we're going to discuss that in the book as well, because I can only repeat again and again and again, you will be financially more successful if trust exists. And it's not just something that happens, it's something we have to work on. And if we work on it, well, we can actually become more successful in creating trust. Then we have rules of the game as discussed. We need to discuss on how to negotiate before we start negotiating. And last but not least, we certainly need to have a focus on macroeconomics, how we do that, right? Let me change topic and move into AI. And I'm doing a lot of keynotes, and one of the most requested areas in negotiation right now is artificial intelligence. And I was focused on AI way before ChatGPT and all the other LLMs came out. So we did a lot of research, and by we, I mean the president and founder of World CC, Tim Cummins, and I, because we both share love of technology in negotiation and negotiation. So one of the things we did the second that ChatGPT came out was actually setting up a study. And we released a peer-reviewed paper on that research very recently, where we compared negotiation where none of the parties were using AI, where one side were using AI, and when both sides were utilizing AI. So what we did was we repeated a simulation. We had people from around the world sitting and negotiating online. And imagine that you're negotiating right now, very traditionally, without the use of AI against a counterpart not using AI. That would be one topic of studying. Then we had, as I just said, two parties negotiating with each other, where one side were utilizing AI, the counterpart wasn't. And then we have the third group where both parties were embracing AI. And I have to tell you guys, the outcome of this study was just remarkable. It was even a surprise to me, because let me just take you through some of the conclusion of this study. What we saw was that in the simulation, when we were traditionally negotiating old school with no use of AI, all the parties ran out of time. They never managed to conclude a deal within the agreed time to reach the deal. So they simply didn't utilize their time correctly, neither preparing or conducting the actual negotiation. Then we had negotiation where one side were using AI, the counterpart was not using AI. They managed to reach a deal just within the time frame with only a few minutes left. And then look at the third one, where both sides were utilizing AI, in this case ChatGPT. All of them, and I repeat, all of them in this simulation reached agreement well before time ran out. Not only were they better prepared, they were also spending less time on preparation, and they concluded before time. Then some of you might be sitting there thinking, yes, but how about relationship, emotional, and the financial outcome of those negotiations? Well, let's take a look at them. So when we look at preparation, we also saw that the traditional negotiators, none of them using AI, were not as well prepared. They were basically quite often confused about the content, what they're supposed to ask of questions, what the financial outcome were of some reactions, and what have you. So I would say preparation was less than satisfactory. When we saw the two teams where one side were using AI and the other side were not, that was actually even worse. Their preparation was not improved in any possible way, because we had an unbalance in how they were prepared. So it didn't help. Then one side were embracing AI and the counterpart wasn't. But look what happened when both sides were using AI in their negotiation. Both sides were well better prepared. And those who were really bright in their preparation simply took the simulation, uploaded it to ChatGPT, and asked ChatGPT all the right questions, and thereby were able to analyze the whole simulation way, way faster, obviously, than any humans were able to do by themselves. Sorry. The second last one I want to share with you is value realization. And this is interesting from a financial point of view. And since I believe that commercial negotiations is about creating and distributing value, this one is really essential to me. So what we could see here is that when humans were negotiating humans, the value realization, the macroeconomics, were not that impressive. They didn't really capture a lot of the value. It helped a little bit when one side were using AI, but as you can see, when both sides were using ChatGPT in preparation and conducting their negotiation, they captured the majority of the value. Very little were left on the table. And the last thing, which actually was a big surprise to me, perhaps surprised me the most, as you can see, was that collaboration without use of AI was higher than when one side were using AI, the counterpart wasn't. But look what happened the second both sides were using AI. Collaboration went through the roof. Trust increased, transparency increased, honesty increased. And I was very surprised about this outcome of the study. And some of you might be asking why. And let me give that to you as a cliffhanger. That is all explained in the book as well. But that was a big surprise to me that actually the honesty, transparency, and collaboration increased when we did that. Now, I repeated this in my doctorate as well and used this as well. And as I said, back to trust, we could actually put a value on trust and collaboration as well. So one of the things we spent a little bit of time on is actually identifying how can we use ChatGPT. And I have a question for you. And obviously I can't see your answers, but you're very welcome to put up a comment right now to share with the rest of us. Have you or are you using AI in negotiation? Now, piece of warning, AI is not a shortcut. It still requires that you are a skilled, educated, experienced negotiator. Because if you are not those three and you start using AI in your negotiation, you could crash and burn. Because obviously AI tools are not always right. Sometimes they have a brain tumor and just go in a really wrong direction. So you need to be able to filter, one thing. And secondly, you have to be able to ask the right question. And that requires you have knowledge about negotiation. But if you have experience, knowledge, and education, not using AI today is a big mistake because it can really help you optimize negotiation. And I am actually surprised when I'm working with major corporations around the world, how many of them, when I'm asking, are you actively using AI in your negotiations today? How many of them that are saying, nope. And some of them are saying it because they say we're not allowed to in our organization. We have a firewall. We are not allowed to use that. We can't do it. I've done something privately, but I can't do it in my organization. So I can only encourage organizations to create, back to strategy, a strategy about how to utilize and embrace AI in your negotiation. So big question is, how should we actually use it? Let me give you an example up here, as you can see. It's all about prompting, how you communicate with AI. Quality questions will give you quality answers, right? So this is just an example. If you are in procurement, you could say, I work for Ford Motor Company, a large car manufacturer based in the United States. I want to buy 10,000 cloth material for car seats from a supplier in Germany. Give me 10 suppliers I should consider. You could also ask for variables to negotiate. You could also ask to prepare that negotiation. You could also ask for standard terms and the agenda. You could ask for a lot of different items that could help you. Another question is that describe your negotiation background and variable, include your starting point, goals, and walk away scenario. That's, by the way, another tool in the book, starting point, goals, and threshold of pain, always required before you negotiate. Anyway, describe them as specific as possible and describe the company you're negotiating with. So a question to ChatGPT or whatever AI tool you're using could be, what is an opening statement that will set the tone for the negotiation? Or how can I establish rapport and build trust with the counterpart? So that's a question as well. I have some good news, and that is that ChatGPT and other AI tools knows of me quite well and my concept of partnership negotiation. And as you probably heard, AI works better when you claim or ask AI to act as an individual or a certain expert. So you can actually go to AI and ask it to act as me, Keld Jensen, and ask it to negotiate in the world of partnership, creating economics, and working with trust currency. And it will do that. I just want to share a very embarrassing story with all of you, actually. That just tells you how lazy I am. But I often get every week questions from clients saying, I'm about to embark on this negotiation. How should I deal with that? And I had one of these questions at one point where I answered as I normally would. And then I thought, couldn't it be fun to try and see how ChatGPT would answer that question as me? So I removed everything that was confidential. Then I uploaded the text to ChatGPT and said, ChatGPT, answer this question as Keld Jensen. And ChatGPT did that. And it did it way better than I do, because you know what's funny? ChatGPT is not lazy, but I'm human. So I'm thinking, well, this must be sufficient. Obviously, I could write a lot more, but I don't want to do another book. So this is the answer to my client. ChatGPT do not have that limitation of being lazy. So it just listed a bunch of stuff. And just to make this even more embarrassing, I took the answer from ChatGPT and my answer to the same question, sent it out to 62 people who knows me really well. And then I asked them, which of these two answers is from me and which of these two answers is from ChatGPT? And 58 of the 62 people got it wrong. They thought that the better answer was from me and the worse answer was from ChatGPT, when it was actually quite opposite. So there's no need for me. And in the future, you can just go and ask ChatGPT to become me, and then hey, you get better quality answers as well. So anyway, that was just a side note. So how can ChatGPT train me? Well, I want you to act as a supplier. You could say, ask ChatGPT to do that. I want you to act as a supplier selling whatever product. I will be the procurement manager of whatever company, and I want to order this product for whatever price. Pretend you're not happy with my offer and negotiate it with me. Please give me a hard time. Don't come up with your answers at once. Wait until I reply before you come up with the next line. Make it conversational. This is a great way of you to start practicing negotiation. So it's really essential that you use AI to practice negotiation, because too often, I have to say, I see that the preparation time a negotiator takes is the travel time they have from their own office to the counterpart's office. So hopefully it's a long flight of 8 hours. Otherwise, the preparation is not really good. So think about that as well when you start planning, and use AI as a planning tool as well. So let me just summarize the chapter on AI here. How can ChatGPT help me? And I'm just saying ChatGPT. It could be any kind of AI tool out there. So it can definitely help you in your preparation, as I just said. Creating your strategy, it's definitely a valued partner to do that as well. During negotiation seems to be the biggest challenge right now. So what I recommend, I'm talking about that in the book as well, is that you need to set up a team. In the team, you need a head negotiator, a note taker, and a calculator. Very quickly explained. Calculator is the one in charge of numbers and mathematics and finances. The note taker is the memory of the team, the one that remembers to ask the questions, to make summaries, to take notes. And often the note taker is the one that has the best overview of the complete negotiation. And then you have the head of the team, which is the head of the team. Now, when you are a team, and you should always, and I recommend always, negotiate as a team, unless you are in a grocery store buying a gallon of milk, then you don't need a team to negotiate. But if you're out there negotiating anything important, you should and have to work as a team. And if you want to use AI in general, you need to have one of these assistants to the head negotiator working with AI, because otherwise, obviously, it gets too complicated. That was one of the things we saw during our multiple simulations, that working with AI was the biggest challenge as negotiation was going forward. But you can definitely and should use AI during negotiation. A lot of people are saying by using AI, we remove emotions and relationship from negotiation. Well, according to our study, it was quite opposite. We actually improved relationship. We improved the emotional connection. We improved rapport as well. So that was not the case. Now, I have to say, we're still a live negotiation where people were sitting facing each other. And this is one piece of warning I want to share with all of you. Don't negotiate by email. Don't negotiate by text, because it's just horrible. We misinterpret, we translate text in different ways. That was not the original meaning. So negotiation is a face-to-face activity. Whether you do it virtually online or meet face-to-face, not that important, but it has to be face-to-face. And obviously, using AI in that connection did not reduce the relationship, quite opposite. As I just said, you can use AI for simulations, creating your next best alternative, the BATNA, as something similar to the BATNA. We call it NBA for various reasons, but you can read more about that in the book as well. It can definitely help you with your communication, and then obviously post-negotiation, help you review the contract. And one of the things that I am talking about when we discuss this topic in the book as well is actually renegotiating existing contract. And I know if you're a contract manager, you probably start to get sleepless nights if you have to review existing contracts. But when you take the glasses on from the content of this book, you realize that there is a lot of hidden value in existing contracts. I have a case study in the book as well, where we actually illustrate by reopening a contract, we can find a lot of value. So that's a different topic, but AI can definitely help you do that as well. I have been very fortunate to get a lot of positive reviews about the book already. I'm very, very humble about how people like the book. We have had great reviews from, among others, Dr. Clive Reed, who is head of procurement at Fujitsu. Globally, we have Jim Daly from Google, one of the head negotiators from Google, that liked the book as well. Lars Kroll, who is the head of the MBA program at my university in Denmark, Aalborg University. Tarek Amin from Bechtel, Laurie Ehrlich from Datadog, Jean Nicolas from University in Canada, Mark Bowden, that some of you might know, one of the absolutely experts on body language, and more. So I'm very fortunate and happy that people actually enjoy and love the book. You know, it's always a challenge when you're writing a book to see how people will react. You don't really know that. So the reviews you get in early on is quite amazing. Anyway, if you're interested in the book one, you can purchase that anywhere you want to. And if you decide to buy the book, then I would definitely advise you to download the free workbook. So it's not an additional purchase you have to do. The workbook is absolutely free. And I have a wonderful colleague, Bea, who spent lots of time creating and designing this book. So please use the opportunity, take a picture of the QR code. If that doesn't work for you right now, just send me an email on keld@keldjensen.com, and we will send you the link where you can register and download the workbook. So the workbook is just really a great opportunity to try and sit down and focus and create some of the potential outcome that you can improve the second that you're actually working with the elements of negotiation. Anyway, we only have a few minutes left. Time flies in good company. And I'm just wondering if there are any questions. Obviously, we can't do it live since this is a streaming through StreamYard, but you are very welcome to write in the notes on LinkedIn or YouTube or wherever you might be watching this. And if you're not watching this live, I am very happy to answer any questions you may have. You can just email me at keld@keldjensen.com, and I will, as soon as time allows, give you an answer to whatever you may have in relationship to the book or anything around the book. If you're curious about our concept and what we do, you can actually study the 103 elements on our online university, 103steps.com, where you can purchase access. There are hundreds of videos that are actually building on and giving you additional content about the book. And the book itself is giving you lots of checklists and giving you a lot of summaries that we use in our training and the advisory for our clients as well. So anyway, if there are any questions, any comments whatsoever right now, you are very welcome to ask them in the comments. We have the opportunity right now. Where can you get the book? I'm getting a question here. Well, anywhere where you normally buy your book. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble here in the US, internationally on Amazon, obviously. It's going to be available in any bookstore, any book dealer where you normally get the book. It is officially out now. I don't think there's a difference between any parts of the world. It should be accessible everywhere right now. So you can basically just purchase it wherever you might be interested. The book, as I mentioned earlier, is divided into the 8 chapters, and each of them are diving into different areas and focusing on that. And there's a lot of text in the book because it is really a complete compendium, as I said, that has the ambition of cover most stuff that is relevant about negotiation. Now, one of the questions I'm often getting from journalists is, why should people only buy your book on negotiation? And I have an answer to that surprises a lot of people, and that is they shouldn't. They should not only buy my books or my books. They should buy all other authors' books as well. I meet some people who have bought one book, one of the most successful books on negotiation that was published some years ago. And they claim that, well, I bought and read this book, so now I know everything about negotiation. And I apologize for my language, but that's a load of BS. You cannot buy my book or any author's book, any other author's book, and then claim that you know everything about negotiation, because it's impossible to cover everything about negotiation. Now, this book is a very ambitious project because I'm trying to, but is there still stuff missing? Absolutely. So by the way, I'm happy to recommend other authors' great work. If anybody's curious, if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see that I often write about other authors and share a list of books that I would definitely recommend that you read and buy as well. So it's not about buying my books. It's about improving the way we negotiate in the world and how we can actually improve negotiation. There's an important year that I often reflect to when we talk about negotiation. That is the year 1776. And I claim that we really haven't developed how we negotiate since 1776. And that story is way too long for right now. So again, read the book or join one of our sessions. We have open sessions in Denmark and Lithuania, here in the US and around the world. There's always sessions that you can take a look at. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure. As I said earlier, if you do have any ideas in general, if there's anything that you would love us to focus on, if there's anything you would love me to talk about on LinkedIn and whatever, please reach out. Give me any kind of information, any ideas, and I'll be happy to publish that as well. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure seeing you all here today. I hope you're going to get the book. And if you do get the book, if I could ask you for a big favor, that would mean a lot to me. Please review it. If you don't like it, don't review it. But if you do like the book, please give it a review, and hopefully as many stars as possible that you enjoy. It was a lot of work that I put together in the book, so I certainly hope that you will appreciate the book. Thank you so much for your time. There's a small video if you want to watch that here at the very end. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I know you're all very, very busy. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here today. Thank you, guys.